to everyone. Hope you guys are having a blessed day. We are truly, truly walking in an amazing time. Uh, this is this is the manifestation that's something that's been waited on for thousands of years, and I hope that you guys are experiencing increase in peace and many other factors, love, and as this unfolds and as we begin to recognize the reality of the world around us, I think that it, for me, anyways, is becoming somewhat easier to release and let go of instead of trying to hold on, and that's for many people, including myself, that's sometimes quite difficult to do. So we are we're looking really it's quite funny because we're looking at the philosophy of humans, but we're also looking at the philosophy of the spirit, and there are laws that are in function and they're always going to be in function, and it's okay if you don't believe them, but that doesn't change them. And so if we choose to accept the knowledge and the wisdom that's been put in front of us on about 1,000 different levels, then we will grow and we will see benefit come from that. And if not, then we just miss those opportunities. So I personally don't desire for any of us to miss the opportunities that are availed to us, but I also am a realist, and I understand that whether no matter how bad you wish that doesn't necessarily bring it to pass. Each one of us individually have to accept the responsibility for truth. And so if we choose not to do that in favor of some other mindset, then so be it. I mean, that's not the end of the world, I guess, at that level. But on the other side, if you desire to find out what you really might be inside that you may know nothing about, then that's also a really wonderful perspective to have as well. So, peace to each and every one of you. We are functioning in the Kybalion, and I hope you guys have been blessed. Some of you told me that it's pretty overwhelming, and the truth and the pieces that you're seeing that you've never known or recognized. And you know, I often ponder, you know, we spend a lot of time blaming other people, but we never stop to ask ourselves. And so those that are growing, what I'm seeing is that that's starting to relinquish, and the more that we view ourselves, the more that we will be able to let go. So it really is kind of a filling, an emptying, if I could say, and then a refilling. And I think that metaphoric principle, which is really what the Bible's all about, anyways, the metaphoric principle of the removing the demon, I'll give it to you in modern philosophy. When you begin to remove the shadow, then you have more room inside of you to put the positive. That's what Paul was talking about when he talked about that if a house is clean and you don't fill it, that you end up in a worse situation. So once you grab that metaphoric perspective, then you begin to understand that the demon is you. The demon is your subconscious, your dark self, all the stuff that you've been pushing down, and you can keep resisting it all you want to. You're never going to defeat it, and it's never going to go away. The only hope that you have of conquering is to accept. And so if you're one of those people who never accepts the truth, then it's going to be difficult. Of course, what that means is can only be played out by you. So I hope you guys will understand. This is about a journey that none of us have ever known anything about. A journey for finding spiritually who I really am. And the weird part about it is that to find who I am spiritually, I have to first find who I am as a human. And there's lots of people that are trying to sell, smoke and mirror stories that you can find the spiritual, and then that it's all nonsense. That does not work. You may find a pseudo spirituality. They had that in Christianity. I watch people dance around and speak in tongues and fall on the ground and flop and cluck like chickens, and I could go on with the things that I watched in my church. And they never found the truth because they were looking for spirituality, not the truth. And so it's a very sad thing, because if you can't see it, then you probably don't have much hope of ever fixing it. And it's very necessary that we, with circumspect mind, I believe there's a truth that goes with Paul. Paul said that we were supposed to be circumspect, not as fools, redeeming the time, for our days are evil. And so, on one level, if you look at that in the simplest form, he was telling us that we must become mindful of everything that's dark. Well, if you go back and you begin to understand that Paul is really talking about this whole spiritual thing that we're on, the darkness is not something else. The darkness is you. And for lots of people, that's very difficult to deal with. Many people have lived their whole life running from the truth. Not running to it, running from it. And many will continue to do that. Will it affect you negatively? Most probably. Will it be the end of the world? No. Is it going to make you go to hell? No. But it will certainly affect your spiritual life while you're here. Once this body dies, you get to find the whole thing out. So there's not much hidden after we leave this body. And so the journey then of illumination and spirituality is the journey of finding out who I am before I leave this body. And that's the work. So chapter 8 today of the Kybalion, the Hermetic teachings. If you track with what these teachings are tied to, I've found them going back at least 6,000, 7,000 years ago. Exact same teaching. So when we're told this is New Age stuff, can I give you a little code to those words? It's like I told you that once I learned the code to the Bible, then I immediately begin to see spirituality everywhere. And it was exactly the same words I taught for 30 years, but it wasn't the same. So like the song we sang last week, nothing's really changed, but everything's changed. And I see that concept constantly. So chapter 8 today of the Kybalion, the Hermetic teachings, which go back to Thoth. If you don't know who Thoth is, go research him. He's the bird-beaked man that's inscribed all over Egypt. These are his teachings, who came to Hermes Trismegistus, who from there ended up as Enoch. They outlawed the book of Enoch. So, let's see. The planes of correspondence. So we're going to be talking about planes today. Are there many planes? Are there other planes? As above, so below. As below, so above. Now ponder that for a second. In the above, as we are here, does that mean that we're also that there? There's a very significant question that would take much pondering and will, is what's manifesting down here because of what's manifesting in the heavens, or is what manifesting in the heavens, and I'm talking in relation to myself, you should be talking in relation to yourself, or is what's manifesting down here what's manifesting in the heavenlies? And while as many things that you find out in the philosophy that we're looking at, sometimes the two stances can sound identical, and if you understand perspective and have discernment, you will be able to pick up the nuanced differences. So in other words, is the heaven causing me whatever I'm going through spiritually, or is it really me causing the spiritual thing in the heavenlies? And that's, like I said, they're the exact same words switched around, but they don't mean anything remotely the same. As inside, so is outside. As is inside of you. If you're in turmoil, you're against your shadow, you want to hide it, you don't want people to get through your, as Carl Jung said, your millions of deceptions that you do about yourself every day, because really, for the most part, the only people that we deceive is ourselves. You really believe you are what you have made yourself to be. And in reality, that's not even remotely close to the truth. But in your mind, it is truth. And so, we have an option. So is what's going on in America with politics, is that's what forming, is that's what causing the conflict inside of me, is that's what making me who I am, is that's what's causing me to have a lack of love or an excess of love, a lack of compassion or an excess of compassion? Are those things really so powerful that they can instill or remove spiritual things from inside of you? Because the answer, if you haven't already formulated it, the answer is no, they're not. In fact, those things have nothing to do with that, unless we choose to let them. So, no matter how you get around it, friends, it all comes back to your decisions. And it's on every level, it's on every layer. So let's take a look at that. The great second Hermetic principle embodies the truth that there is a harmony, an agreement, and a correspondence between several planes of manifestation. Maybe some of you who have been on a spiritual search and you are looking for truth, maybe you're recognizing that there is a lot of teaching about manifestations. Well, if you see a lot of teachings, there's a lot of teachings because there's a lot of lack in that area. They don't teach about things that you already have. They teach usually about things that you don't possess. And manifestation is one of the things. Well, just so that you understand, a metaphoric picture, which is all it is in the New Testament, of manifestation, Paul talks about this a lot, actually. Yeshua talked about it a lot. He says, well, guys, it's like this. The only way you'll ever manifest is if you desire something so bad that you begin to pursue it. He said it like this: those that seek find, and there's no question, please hear me, in love, there is no deception. You haven't found what you're looking for because you're not looking for it. Maybe you don't even know that you need it. That happens often. But the two principles are exactly the same. Only those that seek truly, clearly, and purely from a right heart. And it means everything to source. Why? Because source already knows whether you're real or not. The saddest statement I used to see in Christianity was that people would try to convince people of what they were, and yet nobody even believed them. Because what they were trying to sell you was a bill of goods for one of the false identities that they had created about who they were. So they walk in all puffed up, full of pride, and they got all of their things going on. And some man in their world, it's like they're God. And nobody believes it but them. And so I believe Source is all about us living and loving. And most importantly, how could we really start the whole process if in fact we hate ourselves so much that all we can find inside of ourselves is to lie about who we really are? That's not love. I'm sorrowful if that's what you've been doing and that's what you think love is. That should give you a pretty clear picture of maybe how off of the track you really are. Is that a condemnation? Absolutely not. If all of us haven't been there, we will. The only decision that we get to make is are we going to stay in that path or not? But there's no question about it. The process starts with you loving yourself. How can you do that? How can you do that if you refuse to look at those dark sides that live inside of you, which is really you? Something that we have to be considerate of. We have to think about those things, and then we also have to be honest enough with ourselves to go through the process of grieving. Sometimes it's grieving, sometimes it's trauma, sometimes it's taking a deep breath and just accepting the responsibility that is already ours. It's just waiting for us to choose it. But there's several planes of manifestation: life and being. This truth is a truth because all that is included in the universe emanates from the same source: life and being. In Him we live and move and have our being. That's one of the planes right there in the Bible. So this truth is a truth because all that is included in the universe emanates from source. And the same laws, principles, and characteristics apply to each unit. So for all of you that thought that you were going to get away from the laws, you will never get away from the law. The law is that you never get away from the law. Nor should you desire to. So the same laws, the same source, the same principles, the same characteristics apply to each of these planes, or combinations of unit of activity. A lot of people talking about the Akash, or the Akashic record, which is the record that is in the heavenlies that possesses all of everything that you've ever thought, said, or done. So when the scripture says that source knows the thoughts and the intents of your heart, they're recorded in the Akashic record. Every single one of them. Most of you can't remember all of the thoughts and intentions that you've had, much less be willing to deal with them while you're here on the earth. That's a very special person, and there are some, they usually call them masters, because they are the ones who dealt with the karma right here, right now, not waited for after this body dies and then whatever pain or whatever they have to go through. As each manifests its own phenomena upon its own plane, so there's that law again. They're the same thing, two different ends of the scale. For the purpose of convenience of thought and study, the Hermetic philosophy considers that the universe may be divided into three great classes of phenomena, known as the three great planes, namely the great physical plane, the great mental plane, and the great spiritual plane. And that's really good if you can put that in your mind and get those three, that they are. Why is there a triune? If there is a Trinity, friend, this is closer to the Trinity than anything that you've ever heard as far as truth goes. There are these planes, and they are different, and yet they're all part of the whole. So the great physical plane, the great mental plane, and the great spiritual plane. And if you'll notice, there's an ascending order there. What's first? First is your flesh, second is your mind, and third is your spirit. You should really open your ears and listen to that, because that's also the order in which, if you gain any enlightenment, that you will gain it. First off, will be in your physical body. Secondly, will be in your mind. And since the mind controls everything that we do, that progression sometimes can be pretty difficult into a mental being instead of a carnal being. I'll use that term because it's very popular in Christianity. They understand what a carnal person is. It's a person that only worries about self. So these divisions are more or less artificial and arbitrary, for the truth is that all of the three divisions are but ascending degrees of the great scale of life, the lowest point of which is undifferentiated matter, and the highest point, that of spirit. So think about this. Let me show you something that is how we act as humans, and Christianity's helped us a lot. They sell you on the journey of spirit, but they do everything that they do. Now, please understand, even if they're doing this, they're doing it out of ignorance, okay? But they sell you on this act. If you were in the Pentecostal, and many people that are listening to me and that will listen to me probably have come out of Assembly of God or Pentecostalism. And they totally understand, because if they've ever sat in a Pentecostal service and had somebody stand up and babble in tongues and dance like a chicken, you don't miss that too often. It went on about every week in our church for a little while. And all of a sudden, the Spirit stopped. But there was more spiritual truth that was released than any of those people had ever seen. So the perspective that they had been sold by the other pastors they had listened to wasn't the perspective I had. So, the different planes shade into each other so that no hard and fast division may be made between the higher phenomena of the physical and the lower of the mental, or between the higher of the mental and the lower of the physical. So they're very important for us to have, because as humans, we sometimes need pictures. Maybe some of you said this, I'm so confused, I just can't see what you're talking about. So the wording they're using is actually very, very, very for that purpose, to try to give us a break, to help us see. Once you see it, it blurs away and the whole thing becomes a whole. So that no hard and fast division. It is to say, I don't go, okay, well now I'm functioning in my body. They're all three functioning all the time. In short, the three great planes may be regarded as the three great groups of degrees of life manifestation, and that's really important to us. Life manifestation. How do we manifest life? If you think about, if you'll stop and think a little bit about Yahusha, Yahusha was constantly talking about life, 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 life. Constantly. How do you manifest life? What does that even mean? Because it's all over the internet. While the purposes of this little book do not allow us to enter into an extended discussion of or explanation of the subject of these different planes, still we think it well to give a general description of the same at this point. At the beginning, we may as well consider the question so often asked by the neophyte who desires to be informed regarding the meaning of the word plane. which term has been freely used and very poorly explained in many recent works on the subject of occultism. The question is generally about as follows. Is a plane a place having dimensions, or is it merely a condition or a state? And we answer, no, not a place, nor ordinary dimension of space, and yet more than a state or a condition. It may be considered as a state or a condition, and yet the state or condition is a degree of dimension. And a scale subject to measurement. Somewhat paradoxical, is it not? But let us examine the matter. A dimension, you know, is a measure in a straight line, relating to measure, etc. The ordinary dimensions of space are length, breadth, and height, and perhaps length, breadth, and height, thickness, or circumference. But there is another dimension of created things, or measure in a straight line, known to occultists and to scientists as well. Although the latter is not yet as applied the term dimension to it, and this new dimension, which by the way is the much speculated about fourth dimension, is the standard used in determining the degrees or the planes. You hear lots about fourth dimension, and you're hearing more now about people going through the fourth dimension into the fifth dimension, which is inevitably the elevated state that I understand we are going to end up, those who go through this process for the things that are coming. The adjusting of the universe for humanity appears to be bringing us to a level of the fifth dimension. So the fourth dimension may be called the dimension of vibration. Thus, you can understand why it would be so prevalent. In the fourth dimension is the level of vibration, then you can understand, as I said, why there's so much conversation about frequencies and vibrations right now. Because the only way we can come higher is to fix the vibrational issue that we have. And if you were like me, you lived your life on probably the lowest, densest, thickest, murkiest dimensions that exist. Those down there with shame and guilt and hate and anger. That was mostly what my society gave to me, as well as my family. And it will always keep you locked. It will always keep you trapped. Many of you are still living in those, though you're trying to beat out of the wet paper sack, you just can't quite seem to get through. So it is true. Until we're willing to deal with the subconscious and the shadow self, we will never be free. You can learn the buzzwords. You can be like the Christians who learn to say hallelujah and amen, and you can learn how to cluck like a chicken, and you can learn how to babble some nonsense that means nothing. You can do all of those things and not even be remotely spiritually enlightened. I've watched churches full of them. So the fourth dimension may be called the dimension of vibration. It is a fact well known to modern science as well as to the Hermetists, which have embodied the truth in their third Hermetic principle, that everything is in motion and everything vibrates. Nothing is at rest. And of course, that's now becoming mainstream with quantum physics. That is becoming mainstream thought, even in science. 50 years ago, that would have been absurd. You couldn't have found a scientist, probably, unless he was an occultist, you couldn't have found one to agree with you about that. And now they're reaching into those other dimensions through quantum physics, which is the whole meaning of CERN. That everything is in motion and everything vibrates. That's right, friends. You have 75 trillion little swirling, quiggly things inside of you that are little masses of energy that are swirling in a spiral shape. Bumping up against each other is what makes you up. Nothing is at rest. Everything vibrates, nothing is at rest. From the highest manifestation to the lowest, everything and all things vibrate. Not only do they vibrate at different rates of motion, but as in different directions and in a different manner. The degrees of the rate of vibrations constitute the degrees of the measurement on the scale of vibrations. In other words, the degrees of the fourth dimension, and these degrees form what occultists call planes. The higher the degree of rate of vibration, the higher the plane, the higher the manifestation of life occupying that plane. So then you have a very simple, common sense explanation of why raising our vibrations is so drastically important. So that while a plane is not a place, nor yet a state or a condition, yet it possesses qualities common to both. We shall have more to say regarding the subject of the scale of vibrations in our next lessons, in which we shall consider the Hermetic principle of vibration. And to some extent, I've shared with you guys early on, a month ago, the scale of vibrations. And wow, with computers and modern science, they have been able to experience things that are massively low, which is a whole nother conversation with itself, and those vibrations that are phenomenally through the roof that some of your ascended masters that are living today that they have measured, and it's really quite crazy the differences in between and how much those differences affect your life. Is it important that we protect our vibe? You know, you hear that, and that used to be a term you would hear is for somebody who was like a hippie. You know, they're kind of akin to me in the 70s and the 80s. You know, them were the hippie people that were weird. You know, that used words like that. Well, actually, they were just a little faster than everybody else. And so, we shall have more to say regarding the subject of the scale of vibrations in our next lesson, in which we shall consider the Hermetic principle of vibration. You will kindly remember, however, that the three great planes are not actual divisions of the phenomena of the universe, but merely arbitrary terms used by the Hermetists in order to aid in the thought and the study of various degrees and forms of universal activity in life. The atom of matter, the unit of force, the mind of man, and the being of archangel are all but degrees in one scale and fundamentally the same. Wow, that was a mouthful. So ponder that. In the ancient Hebrew times, when it was written in the Bible that there was an angelic being, we have this picture, and it's really horrible. It's really very sad. I don't say that they don't exist. I just say that most of what we've been told was them isn't anything remotely close to like it is. But the Hebrew understanding and meaning for the word angel simply, very simply, only means messenger. Has no connotations about some being. When you call on, and you should be if you're not, along with your spirit guides, when you call on the spirit of the Archangel Michael, you're calling on the messenger that is close to source. That's all you're doing. It's not some great big 9-foot God that stands next to God. You know, he's got a gray beard and he sits like Abraham Lincoln on a big chair up in the heavenlies. And if you need to draw those pictures in your mind, and that's the only way you can perceive him, then that's how you need to perceive him. But that's not how Source is at all. In fact, Source has he's not anything but spirit. And a mental spirit at that. Wow. So ponder that you could also yourself be called an angel. So was that really what Paul was talking about? Can I give you a thought that you've probably never occurred? All of these people that you are hearing, if you're paying any attention at all, and I don't say you are, but if you are, then you're hearing all of a sudden pop up all over the place different people that are speaking, and they call them channelers. There are different people that are speaking. I hate to give you this understanding while you sit and condemn them as being fake, but most channelers would be better defined as simply angels. Now see, Paul wasn't talking about some supernatural thing flying down with wings when he talked about be careful because you never know, you might be entertaining an angel. What Paul is talking about, whoever it is that you're talking to may be speaking as a channel for source and you're ignorant to it. You don't have a clue what that person just said came straight from the presence of source and you dismiss it because, hey, that person isn't greater than I am. We have to really be careful because pride will cut us out of the truth. When Paul is talking about angelic hosts, Paul is typically talking about people that are coming as channelers speaking to you. That would be closer to an angel in our time than the religious picture you have locked in your mind. Source sends angels every day into our life. But we're ignorant to what an angel is, so we keep waiting for some big thing with wings to show up, or some little thing with a bow that flies around. In reality, the angels that the scriptures talk about, friends, may be sitting right in front of you, and you don't know it. We have to be very careful about our pride. That's not to condemn anyone. I'm talking to every one of us. We have to be very careful about our pride. So you will kindly remember, however, that the three great planes are not actual divisions of the phenomena of the universe, but merely arbitrary terms used by Hermetists in order to aid in the thought and the study of the various degrees and forms of universal activity in life. The atom of matter and the unit of force and the mind of man and the being of the archangel are all degrees in one scale. I don't know about y'all, but that just like sucks the wind right out of my lungs when I read that. All fundamentally the same. The difference between solely a matter of degree and a rate of vibration, all are creations of the all. And have their existence solely within the infinite mind of the all. We live in Him, in the all. We live and move and have our being. The Hermetists subdivide each of the three great planes into 7 minor planes, and each of these latter are also subdivided into 7 subplanes, all divisions being more or less arbitrary, shading into each other and adopted merely for the convenience of scientific study and thought. This is all done as a way to break things down so our human mind can learn and build on the platform. The great physical plane and its 7 minor planes is that division of the phenomena of the universe which includes all that relates to physics or material things, forces and manifestations. It includes all forms of that which we call matter and all forms of that which we call energy or force. But you must remember that the Hermetic philosophy does not recognize matter as a thing in itself or as having a separate existence even in the mind of the all. The teachings are that matter is but a form of energy, that is, energy at a low rate of vibration of a certain kind, and accordingly the Hermetist classifies matter under the head of energy and give it to 3 of the 7 minor planes of the great physical plane. The 7 minor physical planes are as follows: the plane of matter, the plane of matter B, the plane of matter C, the plane of ethereal substance, the plane of energy A, the plane of energy B, and the plane of energy C. The plane of matter comprises the forms of matter in its form of solids, liquids, and gases as generally recognized by the textbooks on physics. The plane of matter B comprises certain higher and more subtle forms of matter, of the existence of which modern science is but now recognizing the phenomena of radiant matter in its phases of radium, etc., belonging to the lower subdivision of this minor plane. The plane of matter C comprises forms of the most subtle and tenuous matter, the existence of which is not suspected by ordinary scientists. The plane of ethereal substance comprises that which scientists speak of as the ether, a substance of extreme tenuity and elasticity, pervading all universal space and acting as a medium for the transmission of waves of energy such as light, heat, electricity, etc. This ethereal substance forms a connecting link between matter, so-called, and energy, and partakes of the nature of each. The Hermetic teachings, however, instruct that this plane has 7 subdivisions, as have all of the minor planes, and that in fact there are 7 ethers instead of but 1. Next, above the plane of ethereal substance comes the plane of energy A, which comprises the ordinary forms of energy known to science, its 7 subplanes being respectively heat, light, magnetism, electricity, and attraction, including gravitation, cohesion, chemical affinity, etc. And if you were a scientist, those things would be very common to you, and we're not scientists, and they may be new to you. It's okay. It's not that we master these things, it's that we master the principle, at least at this point. Now, if you're going to try to get into MIT, you might want to master those things. In fact, you would have already begun or completed that journey before you ever applied at MIT. And several other forms of energy indicated by scientific experiments, but not as yet named or classified. The plane of energy B comprises 7 subplanes of higher forms of energy, not as yet discovered by science, but which have been called nature's finer forces, and which are called into operation in manifestations of certain forms of mental phenomena by which such a phenomena becomes possible. The plane of energy C comprises 7 subplanes of energy so highly organized that it bears many of the characteristics of life, but which is not recognized by the minds of men on the ordinary plane of development, being available for the use of beings on the spiritual plane alone. Let me get this. Now, this isn't a complete synopsis, but it is a thought. Do you mean to tell me that there's this plane that I live and I move and I function in, and that there are higher planes that I can learn to spiritually function in? I don't know about you guys, that just like turns me on. I'm hung. The fish hook got set. Of course there is. Of course, that's supposed to be the purpose of people who are trying to find the truth. Because the truth is in the simplest nutshell, is that we are all light. We are all energy already. We are now energy that is cloaked under, I would like to say divine, but it wasn't divine. It might have been some supernatural beings that began this, in that there have been DNA strand modification that have gone over the last 25,000 years. Oh yeah, your DNA is not the DNA of 25,000 years ago. Those people were at a higher level spiritually than us because their DNA was not modified. If you don't know or understand this, it's okay. You can find that what I'm saying is absolutely true. In fact, what many believe, what one angel has cared to share with us, is that right now, in the time in which we're living in, there's a 24th chromosome that is coming back online that existed in humans that was blocked, which is what kept us at low vibrations. I know that's a big statement and it's deep, but just please hear the words and benefit from hearing the words. There are major modifications that are going on internal of humans right now that are spiritual. They're going to be the major part of what brings on this 5th dimension that everyone keeps talking about. So the plane of energy comprises 7 subplanes of energy so highly organized that it bears many of the characteristics of life, but which is not recognized by the minds of men on the ordinary plane of development. You see how everything is telling you that you can't get there from here? Bottom line is, friend, you can't get there from here. You can't stay here. For those of you who are rebellious, and I don't know that that's the fair word to use. Those of you who are apprehensive, concerned, you're slow changers, all of those things, there's hope. You have as much time as you have. I don't know that, and you don't know that, how much time you have. But I will tell you, you do have time if you're still alive. There is time for you to begin the journey. But there is no question that the moving into the higher plane is going to take work on your part. Wow. So this higher characteristic of life that is not recognized by the minds of men on the ordinary plane of development. So in other words, it's what Source said to me last week before I came down here. Only those people who are hungry for the truth, who are awake or alive, are only ones who will hear what you're saying. And I have to be honest with you, that just goes like this. When he says things to me, it never goes away. And so then I begin to see pieces, and those pieces that he's spoken to me not only have a facet, but they have millions of facets. Everywhere you go, that piece pops back in, and those words that he implanted in me pop inside of me, and they come out in my vision of how I view the world. Such energy is unthinkable to ordinary man. Another statement. Can I tell you somebody who said a statement really close to this? This may shock you. It came from the Bible. But there was a guy who had experienced astral travel, which is now very common to talk about in the New Age circles. But everything that Paul was is exactly what New Age doctrine teaching is. Paul said, I knew a man and he ended up in the third heaven. I don't know how he got there, and I don't know anything, but I know that this is what he saw up there while he was there was something that you can't even deal with. I'm not even allowed to tell you what I saw. Friends, that's New Age to the T. That's someone who has ascended to a high level, who is functioning in the spirit realm, and he has the knowledge to understand that the human mind cannot deal with what he's talking about. Right there in your Bible. That was Paul's message. These lying Jews have been telling you that your way to God is through Yahweh. Such energy is unthinkable to the ordinary man. Eye hasn't seen, ear hasn't heard, neither has entered into the heart of man the things that Source has prepared for those who love him. So then there is also the possibility of people who do not love Source. I would say that's another pitfall that you need to be really careful about. When you say I love Source, you might need to know what Source views love as being before you say those words. And it's not what you think love is. I've struggled and been condemned on 1,000 levels for telling people hard truths. And yet I have to tell you, in my spirit bears witness that if there's a hard truth that needs to be told to you, the only person that will ever tell you that truth is the person that loves you. Everybody else will let you walk around in your delusion. But that's not what you consider love. You consider love the one who pats you on the head and tells you everything's wonderful and you're great and fine. You are infinitely more than you can ever have a clue of. And whether you ever find it or don't, Source loves you unimaginably. We're not talking about are those things real, they are real. Source loves all of us. Source loves all of us. What I'm talking about today is to humans who have a desire to know more about what Source is and who am I supposed to be. That's what I'm interested in. That's the truth. Such energy is unthinkable to ordinary man and may be considered almost as the divine power. It is supernatural, to be sure. The beings employing the same are as gods, compared even to the highest human types known to us. Yahusha says. So here you go once again. Archangel Michael, more probably, is an ascended master. Buddha was one of them. Krishna was one of them. Yeshua was most probably one of them. Walking above the human plane. The great mental plane comprises those forms of living things known to us in ordinary life, as well as certain other forms not so well known except to the occultist. Why? Because Christianity hid it from you. The classification of the 7 minor mental planes is more or less satisfactory and arbitrary unless accompanied by elaborate explanations which are foreign to the purpose of this particular work. But we may as well mention them. They are as follows: the plane of mineral mind, the plane of elemental mind, A, the plane of plant mind, the plane of elemental mind, B, the plane of animal mind, the plane of elemental mind, C, and the plane of human mind. And so I want you to stop for a second. When you hear people talking about killing animals is bad, I hate to tell you this, but in the plane of the vegetation world, the plant mind, picking a piece of fruit off of a plant is the same thing as someone shooting a deer. There's no difference. Cutting a plant and eating it is no different than killing an animal and eating it. And I've listened to even well-noted scholars that are vegetarians tell everybody how because it has no mind. At least an animal has some form of a spirit, but that's because they ignorantly talk as if they know what they're talking about. So the question I would ask you is, does the broccoli scream when you cut the head off? Does the watermelon scream when you cut the cord? Does the tomato scream when you pick the tomato? Well, you can't talk tomato, so you have no clue. Question isn't, can you talk tomato? The question is there a mind? They now find science is proving that your actual heart, this thing in here, which everybody believes just pumps blood, is more than this. That it actually has more control over your mind than your mind has control over it. Science didn't know that 20 years ago. And now there are many people out there touting that your heart has a mind. They do open heart surgery and they cut a physical heart out of a physical human being, put it in another physical human being, and the human being possesses memories. How did it get there? That's been proven thousands of times with heart transplants. It's like having a past life regression. They've solved murders off of it. So, am I saying that we should become non-eaters? I think all of us could probably afford to miss a few meals, but I'm not a proponent to not eat my tomatoes. But I'm also not a proponent to eat my brisket either. But we need to understand. This is another deception. People are justifying themselves. The truth is everything that Source created that's in the universe is part of Source. So the plane of mineral mind comprises the state or conditions of the units or entities or groups and combinations of the same which animate the forms known to us as minerals, chemicals, etc. Just so that you understand. Many don't understand why I've taken an interest all of the sudden since we got out of Christianity and the lies of the Bible, why I'm now touting so much the protection and the power of minerals. There's a whole section in the planes that have to do with what Source created, stones that are on this earth. Every one of them has some form of power. We can use them to hurt ourselves, or we can use them to comfort ourselves. We can use them to protect ourselves. We can use them to protect ourselves against other people, which are my most favorite crystals, are those that block negative psychic energy from attacking me. And because we are ignorant of negative psychic energy, most people have no clue that they are psychic, even less that they are, when they look at someone and have negative thoughts about that person, they have just sent a psychic attack to that person, and they did absolutely nothing. Some of you feel beat down and nobody's done anything to you. It's a very good possibility there is someone through the spirit of envy, hate, anger, jealousy, all of those things create psychic attacks simply by a person thinking about you. These entities must not be confounded with the molecules, atoms, and corpuscles themselves, the latter being merely the material bodies or forms of these entities, just as a man's body is but his material form and not himself. These entities may be called souls in one sense and are living beings of a low degree of development, life, and mind. Just a little more than the units of living energy, which comprise the higher subdivision of the highest physical plane. The average mind does not generally attribute the possession of mind, soul, or life to the mineral kingdom. But these stones, which I make and put on people's necks and wrists, have power. That's the reason why I do that. The average mind. Now, I don't know about you. Maybe you desire to stay at that level, but I'm not interested in being average anything. All occultists recognize the existence of the same, and the modern science is rapidly moving forward to the point of view of the Hermetic in this respect. The molecules, atoms, and corpuscles have their loves and hates, likes and dislikes, attractions and repulsions, affinities and non-affinities, and some of the more daring of modern scientific minds have expressed the opinion that the desire and will and emotions and feelings of the atoms differ only in degree from those of men. So in other words, all of those things are exactly the same. Maybe not as large, so they're not to the same degree, but they still exist nonetheless. So for those of you that are wearing amethyst and jewels around your neck, or aquamarine or rubies or whatever it is that you've been blessed to get put around you, it's as if there's a halo that floats around you even right this very minute. Not insignificant. It's more than just jewelry. We have no time or space to argue this matter here. All occultists know it to be a fact, and others are referred to some of the more recent scientific works for outside corroboration. There are usual 7 subdivisions to this plane. The plane of the elemental mind comprises the state or condition, the degree of mental and vital development of a class of entities unknown to the average man, but recognized to the occultist. They are invisible to the ordinary senses of man, but nevertheless exist and play their part in the drama of the universe. So in other words, all the crystal that is all over this earth in every form, and it's everywhere, friends. Everywhere there is a high manifestation. If you would do any research, anywhere that you find large areas of UA, unidentified flying objects, you're always going to find a high level of crystal structures that are found in the ground. The major ones that have been put on television, Skinwalker Ranch, the Frog Ranch, the Bradford Ranch, all been studied by our military, are all underlying with massive layers of crystals. That's a known fact. Why do they see so much supernatural and supernatural powers? It's because of the minerals, the crystalline structures that are in the grounds and also in the rocks. They are invisible to the ordinary senses of man, but nevertheless they exist and play their part in the drama of the universe. Their degree of intelligence is between that mineral and chemical entities on the one hand, and of the entities of the plant kingdom of the other. There are 7 divisions to this plane also. The plane of plant mind in its 7 subdivisions comprises the state or conditions of the entities comprising the kingdom of the plant world, the vital and mental phenomena of which is fairly well understood by the average intelligent person. Many new and interesting scientific works regarding mind and life in plants having been published during the last decade. Plants have life, plants have mind, plants have soul, and as well as having the animals and man's and Superman. The plane of elemental mind, in its 7 subdivisions, comprises the states and conditions of a higher form of the elemental or unseen entities, playing their part in the general work of the universe. The mind and the life of which form a part of the scale between the plane of plant mind and the plane of animal mind, the entities partaking of the nature of both. The plane of animal mind in its 7 subdivisions comprises the states and conditions of the entities, being or souls, animated, the animal forms of life familiar to us all. It is not necessary to go into details regarding this kingdom or plane of life, for the animal world is as familiar to us as is our own. The plane of elemental mind in its 7 subdivisions comprises those entities or beings invisible as are all such elemental forms which partake of the nature of both animal and human life in a degree. And in certain combinations, the highest forms are semi-human in intelligence. The plane of human mind in its 7 subdivisions comprises these manifestations of life and mentality which are common to man in his various grades, degrees, and divisions. In this connection, we wish to point out the fact that the average man of today occupies but the 4th subdivision of the plane of human mind, and only the most intelligent have crossed the borders of the 5th subdivision. It has taken the race millions of years to reach this stage, and it will take many more years for the race to move on to the 6th and 7th subdivisions and beyond. But remember that there have been races before us which have passed through these degrees and then on to higher planes. Our own race is the 5th, with stragglers from the 4th, which has set foot upon this path. And then there are a few advanced souls of our own race who have outstripped the masses and who have passed on to the 6th and 7th subdivision, and some few being still further on. The man of the 6th subdivision will be the Superman. He of the 7th will be the Overman. In our consideration of the 7 minor mental planes, we have merely referred to the 3 elementary planes in a general way. We do not wish to go into this subject in detail in this work, for it does not belong to this part of the general philosophy and teaching. But we may say this much. In order to give you a little clearer idea of the relations of these planes to the more familiar ones, the elementary planes bear the same relation to the planes of mineral, plant, animal, and human mentality and life that the black keys on the piano do to the white keys. The white keys are sufficient to produce music, but there are certain scales, melodies, and harmonies in which the black keys play their part and in which their presence is necessary. They are also necessary as connecting links of soul condition, entity states, etc., between the several other planes, certain forms of development being attained therein. This last fact given the reader who can read between the lines a new light upon the processes of evolution and a new key to the secret door of the leaps of life between kingdom and kingdom. The great kingdoms of elementals are fully recognized by all occultists, and the esoteric writings are full of mention of them. The readers of Bulwer's Zanoni and the similar tales will recognize the entities inhabiting these planes of life. Passing on from the great mental plane to the great spiritual plane, what shall we say? How can we explain these higher states of being, life, and mind to minds as yet unable to grasp and understand the higher subdivision of the plane of human mind? The task is impossible. We can speak only in the most general terms. How may light be described to a man born blind? How sugar to a man who has never tasted anything sweet? How harmony to one that is deaf? All that we can say is that the 7 minor planes of the great spiritual plane, each minor plane having its 7 subdivisions, comprise beings possessing life, mind, and form as far above that as man of today as the latter is above the earthworm, mineral, or even certain forms of energy or matter. The life of these beings so far transcends ours that we cannot even think of the details of the same. Their minds are so far transcend ours that them we scarcely seem to think, and our mental processes seem almost akin to material processes. The matter of their forms are composed is of the highest planes of matter. Nay, some are even said to be clothed in pure energy. What may be said of such beings? On the 7 minor planes of the great spiritual plane exist beings of whom we may speak as angels, archangels, demagogues. On the lower minor planes dwell those great souls whom we shall call masters and adept. Above them come the great hierarchies of the angelic host, unthinkable to man, and above those come those who may without irreverence be called the gods. So high in the scale of being are they, their being, intelligence, and power being akin to those attributed to the races of men to their conceptions of deity. These beings are beyond even the highest flights of the human imagination, the word divine being the only one applicable to them. Many of these beings, as well as the angelic hosts, take the greatest interest in the affairs of the universe and play an important part in its affairs. These unseen divinities and angelic helpers extend their influence freely and powerfully in the process of evolution and cosmic progress. Their occasional intervention and assistance in human affairs have led to the many legends, beliefs, religions, and traditions of the race past and present. They have superimposed their knowledge and power upon the world again and again, all under the law of the all, of course. But yet even the highest of these advanced beings exists merely as creations and in the mind of the all, and are subject to the cosmic processes and universal laws. They are still mortal. We may call them gods if we like, but still they are but the elder brethren of the race, the advanced souls who have outstripped their brethren and who have foregone the ecstasy of absorption by the all in order to help the race on its upward journey along the path. But they belong to the universe and are subject to its conditions. They are mortal, and their plane is below that of absolute spirit. Only the most advanced Hermetists are able to grasp the inner teachings regarding the state of existence and the powers manifested on the spiritual planes. The phenomena is so much higher than that of the mental planes that a confusion of ideas would surely result from an attempt to describe the same. Only those whose minds have been carefully trained along the lines of the Hermetic philosophy for years, yes, those who have brought with them from other incarnations the knowledge acquired previously, cannot comprehend just what is meant by the teaching regarding these spiritual planes. And much of the inner teachings is held by the Hermetists as being too scared, important, and even dangerous for general public dissemination. The intelligent student may recognize what we mean by this when we state that the meaning of spirit, as used by the Hermetists, is akin to living power, animated force, inner essence, essence of life, etc., which meaning must not be confounded with that usual and commonly employed in connection with the term religious, ecclesiastical, spiritual, ethereal, holy, etc., etc. To occultists, the word spirit is used in the sense of the animated principle, carrying with it the idea of power, living energy, mystic force, etc. And the occultists know that which is known to them as the spiritual power may be employed for evil as well as for good ends, in accordance with the principle of polarity, a fact which has been recognized by the majority of religions in their conceptions of Satan, Beelzebub, the devil, Lucifer, fallen angels, etc. And so the knowledge regarding these planes has been kept in the Holy of Holies in all esoteric fraternities and occult orders, in the secret chamber of the temple. But this may be said here, that those who have attained high spiritual powers and have misused them have a terrible fate in store for them. Okay? And the swing of the pendulum of rhythm will inevitably swing them back to the furthest extreme of material existence, from which point they must retrace their steps spiritward along the weary rounds of the path, but always with the added torture of having always with them a lingering memory of the heights from which they fell owing to their evil actions. The legends of the fallen angels have a basis in actual fact, as all advanced occultists know. The striving for selfish power on the spiritual plane inevitably results in the selfish soul losing its spiritual balance and falling back as far as it has previously risen. But to even such a soul, the opportunity of a return is given, and such souls make the return journey, paying the terrible penalty according to the invariable law. Is anybody getting a revelation that there is more than what we have any consciousness of? Some of you have been consternated because it appears like everybody is telling everybody that there is no punishment to be paid for anybody. Some of you have voiced to me how you just struggle. That just can't be true. Well, you don't need to struggle anymore. Your intuition that is inside of you knew that that was correct. There's not many people out there who are trying to tell people the whole truth. If we paint the picture, our YouTube hits go up and we can become monetized and make lots of money. Unfortunately, I don't like to say that, but that is where many of the hearts of people are. It has nothing to do with sharing the truth in love with people. Does Source love us more than we can understand? Is there a price to pay for our actions? You better be guaranteed that there is a price to pay. Call it karmic or whatever term you want to put on it. There are those that struggle with finding out that there were karmic actions in the past that you are still paying a price for. What he just explained to you is exactly that. In conclusion, we would again remind you that according to the principle of correspondence, which embodies the truth, as above, so below, or as below, so above, all of the 7 Hermetic principles are in full operation on all of the many planes. So all have to live by the law of all, no matter how highly they are ascended or how lowly they are descended. All have to function on the law of all. The principles of mental substance, of course, applies to all the planes. For all are held in the mind of the all. The principle of correspondence manifests in all, for there is a correspondence, harmony and agreement between the several planes. The principle of vibration manifests on all planes. In fact, the very differences that go to make the planes arise from vibration, as we have explained. The principle of polarity manifests on each plane, the extremes of the poles being apparently opposite and contradictory. The principle of rhythm manifests on each plane, the movement of the phenomena having its ebb and flow and rise and flow, incoming and outgoing. The principle of cause and effect manifests on each plane, every effect having its cause and every cause having its effect. The principle of gender manifests on each plane, the creative energy being always manifest and operating along the lines of its masculine and feminine aspects. As above, so below. As below, so above. This centuries-old Hermetic axiom embodies one of the great principles of universal phenomena. As we proceed with our consideration of the remaining principles, we will see even more clearly and the truth of the universal nature of this great principle of correspondence. Now I know, so please understand, most of the people that probably stop here for 5 minutes were never taught any of this to begin with. This is stuff you should find in college level philosophy classes. The problem is, and that's why I keep trying to say to people, don't get hung up on what you don't understand. Instead, open your mind and open yourself to source to sow seeds in you. No understanding can come except it comes from him to begin with. If we were all capable of understanding, we would all be floating around here talking in telepathy, and we would be spirits of light. There would be no human bodies. Because inevitably, when we're not in this body, that's what we are anyway. So, if you could dare to give yourself the break of understanding, even if you don't understand, inside of you exists something that is so phenomenal, and yet so hidden. It's like having the brightest light that exists on the earth and building a steel box around it so that no one can see it. Why was Yahusha telling us that we were light? And as I shared with you in the past, he did not make a statement that you could be light. He did not make a statement that you might be light if you try hard enough. You are already light. The only question that we get to really sow into is, am I going to be all that I am, or am I going to continue to resist the exposure to myself of who I truly am? Because I promise you, when you get the revelation of who you are, you won't have to worry about exposing it. Everyone will know it. And so, while this may be over a lot of people's heads, most people's heads, you would have to admit that if you've lived a lot of years in your life, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, 20 years, and nobody ever cared enough to show you. My question would be, why do we need to teach transsexualism in sex education, and we don't teach human children who they are, while they can accept and learn readily what most of the adults on this earth have no clue of? I don't think it's accidental. You can call me a conspiracy theorist if you want to. I probably am. But I will tell you that these things that we're hearing about right now have more value than all the reading, writing, and math you'll ever take in your life. If you get reading, writing, and math and you don't have this, you'll still never be a whole person. On the other side, as you get this, reading and writing and math will be elemental. So I hope you guys will, if you don't understand everything, it's okay. Just don't understand it. You don't have to resist that. I don't understand everything, but surely there was something you understood. If there's something you understood that you did not possess an hour and 20 minutes ago, then I have given life to you. I have given healing to you. If you don't understand what life and healing are, you may not recognize that. But on the other side, if you do, then there's no question that you will be thankful. So we're going to take a little bit of time, catch our breath, and we will be back. Hopefully we're going to bless you with some songs. But please do ponder. If you need today, ask yourself, how much does Source love me? And then ask yourself the simple question, can I dare believe that I could love me the way that Source does? I see in many situations, friends, the greatest struggle that people have, although they struggle with many things, those many things typically come out of just a few things. So it's really like the doctor's giving you a pill for 200 different things. We never find out what it was that was really wrong with us. And I will tell you without any hesitations, and I will not back up on this, most of the pain in our lives comes from the lack of love we have for ourselves. I admit they've worked very hard to get us to hate ourselves. And I'm here to tell you today, that's not what Source wants for you. That's not what he created all of this for. That's not what all of us were put here for. So I hope you'll take that into your mind and ponder it. What if you really aspired to love yourself the way Source loves you? Your world would be flipped upside down at the very thought. Namaste. welcome to everybody. I hope you guys will be blessed. There's as you well know, if you've been with me for any time, there's sometimes so much turmoil and that the Father just constantly keeps bringing to us to help us open our eyes and see what we before couldn't see, or to change the perception. And that's really it. Perception is always a huge part. So we feel really blessed. The first song we're going to do for you really speaks a lot. It kind of is I don't know, if you can look at it, it's a form of prophecy. The song is talking about someday that we'll have the best seat in the house.
Did you ever get the feeling you ain't been dealt a good hand? The odds are against you. You're a slave to the law of the land. I'm gonna gather unto me what must be mine. I want it all right now, not a little at a time. Thinking about a revolution, the first world joined the line. 'Cause we all want what we ain't got. Some of us have and some have not. Everything I've got coming to me. Life, love, money in the land of the free. All my life I've been turned down, and one of these days I'll get the best seat in the house. You got a right to your opinion. You got a right to speak your piece. You got a right to be silent. Well, that ain't never worked for me. We're going through the system. It'll chew you up and spit you out in the land of confusion. Well, that's what it's all about. Thinking about the evolution. Have we always been in the ground? 'Cause we all want what we ain't got. Some of us have and
isn't that very appropriate in so many ways? We are being brought up. Whether you realize it or not, if you are on a spiritual journey, if you are on that journey and you are looking for the truth, I promise you, you will be elevated no matter. It may be slow and it may be difficult. But those things are not things that we should allow to deter us. Sometimes it takes us a while to learn things, and sometimes we learn things quite fast. And so we truly can hang on to a few things. Name of the next song we're going to do for you is a song called More Love and More Power. And there's no question that we all need more experiential love in our lives every day. That isn't to say that Source has failed with us having love. That's actually perspective change for you here, paradigm shift. This is actually a statement now that should be made to ourselves, that we need more love. As we receive, as we give ourselves, and then allow ourselves to receive the love that we already are, as that happens, we will also become more powerful. More love, more power.
More love, more power, more of you in my life. More love, more power, more of you in my life. More love, more power, more of you in my life.
What do you think, friend? Huh? Don't we need it. And not only do we need it, we can have it. We can possess it. We can even manifest it. And that's an amazing thing, that we can move from living a life of struggling and squandering and all of those things, which is what many people's lives. There's so many fractured people. And you look back and then you begin to recognize, well, the thing that brings us to wholeness is the source that love has for us. As we move into wholeness, friends, you will get a new revelation. If you haven't already, you will get a new revelation of the love that source has for you. And the more that you're willing, the more that you empty that negative stuff out of you, and the more you allow him to fill you with his love, the more you will begin to recognize that love. And then it becomes something that you begin to crave, and then as you begin to crave it, then you really get craving it, because now I have it and I have no desire to ever not have it. And so all of those are totally positive things, in case you didn't quite understand. We've been blessed. We've been blessed. I've had those that I've talked to who said, well, I may not be doing everything and I may not be doing everything right, but I sure do experience a lot of peace now. How about you? Is that true for you? Some things, maybe they're over your head. It's okay, let them be. You don't have to struggle with that. If it's over your head, it's over your head. But I'll guarantee you one thing I do know about my mental creator source, that even if it's over your head, if you'll continue to be flexible and be resilient at the same time, I guarantee you things that have been over your head in the past will no longer be over your head. It's about us growing. This is about the growth, the evolution, if you want to use that term, of humans. And in this situation, coming from where we are, each one of us now get to be the creative force that creates us, that turns us into that thing that Father created us to be. And so I think that's pretty amazing, huh? That I get to be the creator. Now, I can choose today, am I going to create low frequency or am I going to create high frequency? Today, am I going to create hurt and pain and shame, or am I going to create goodness and kindness and mercy and loving and compassion? And I get to choose that totally. In fact, the truth is, nobody can choose it but you. What an amazing concept that is. I'm now free to choose who I am. It's amazing. Name of the next song we're going to do talks about change, and the song is called Change It.
The moment is right. It's worth all those years of the past. Let's go one more night. Get away from the blind side of life. Honey, I want you to be by my side. Me and my back don't move, ain't no more. No more. Get away from the blind side of life. Honey, I want you to be by my side. Me and my back don't move, ain't no more. No more. want you to be by my side. Me and my back don't move, ain't no more, no more. Good night, my darling. Another day has passed. Forget all those painful memories. Our love's gonna last. Come to me, baby. Come to me one more time. It's time we got moving. Time to move on. Let's slide out the door. Let's slide out the door. Right our way home. Let's slide our way home. Let us go, let us go. Let us go, let us go. Let us go, let us go. I've come back for more.
Hallelujah. You can't change it and you can't rearrange it. Time is all that we got. What an amazing, beautiful concept. We are blessed. I want you to know that. If you don't know that, you are blessed. I don't care what situation you found yourself in or what you've gone through. The sheer fact that you're hearing the words is proof that Source has a desire for you to recognize that you are blessed. You are blessed. Not gonna be, not could be, you already are. It's just up to you to accept that blessing and begin to change your life. What an amazing concept that we get the opportunity to experience. Truly, 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 it is amazing. Well, the next song we're going to do is along this line. It's a protective song. This would be the, in my crystal jewelry that I create, this would be the black obsidian. This would be the protective stones that Source has given us. And it's called the Wall of Pride.
Don't build a wall of pride. 10 feet tall, 20 feet wide. Don't build a wall of pride. Believe Bob's words, they'll hear it till your bones. Plan is well deep, it'll save your very soul. Don't build a wall of pride. My goodness for me, follow as I am. We live the lifeline and follow his commands. It's not the money that makes a man. His word was sent to us to understand. Don't build a wall of pride. us to understand. Don't build a wall of pride. 10 feet tall, 20 feet wide. Don't build a wall of pride. Don't build a wall of pride. 10 feet tall, 20 feet wide. Don't build a wall of pride.
Hallelujah. Don't do it. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Well, I hope you guys were blessed. I hope that we have begun to accomplish the coming out. We're all still coming out, dear one. All of us still are learning, and there is literally so much. I mean, I know it is for many of you who are with me and who are trying, but it's literally like Source picked all of us up. We were supernaturally abducted, and we were sucked up in a spaceship, and they carried us over to Russia and dumped us out. You don't understand the language. You don't know the culture. It's like, what the heck has happened to us? But I'm going to tell you, it's the most worthwhile journey we'll ever make. Great peace have those whose minds are stayed on Him. I don't care what we don't know. It isn't about what we don't know. What it is about is what we do know. And if we'll continue to learn, then guess what? Even that will continue to grow. And I can't imagine anything that is more amazing. I'm also being blown away with how pieces out of the Bible, the scriptures, and certainly Yeshua, how much, now that we're out of Christianity, how much of the stuff, both in the Bible but in the things that they taught, have nothing to do with Christianity. In fact, they had to twist them in their explanations for us, and I see that constantly, how they had to twist the understanding. In other words, what they programmed you that meant isn't even remotely close to what it meant, but that was what it meant to you, because remember those things when we were leaving Christmas? But that's not what it means to me, Pastor Rob. The question isn't what it means to you, but the question is, what does it mean to you? You know, it's quite funny for all of us. I taught the truth about Christmas according to Christianity, but I have to be honest with you. I don't have any interest to have a Christmas tree. It's a lie. It was Tammuz's birthday, predates Yeshua by, I don't know, give or take a few years of 3,000 years, and we're going to worship Tammuz, Osiris's baby. Well, we should just go on for full-blown paganism then. And everybody who loves Christmas could go back and research Tammuz and Osiris and the 25th of December, and you would come closer to truth to what you're really doing. They're not really honoring Yeshua at all. It has nothing to do with him, in fact. So, what a day of awakening, man. What a day of awakening. How amazing it is. So, namaste. We're glad for those of you who came back to be with us. We're glad. I know that all of this stuff, there's just so much stuff. I get such a limited time, and there's so much stuff that we can benefit from. And that's why I keep saying, and I will continue to charge the air with that positivity. Don't get hung up on what you don't know. This won't be, I promise you, if you've been with me for any time, you know that I'm very dogmatic about going over things. And this won't be the only time we're here. Will it be different next time? Of course it will. Why? Because we'll all be different. By the time we make the circle back around to here again, I promise you, you will have a different perspective of life. Absolutely, and then we'll be able to uptake some more, and we'll go, wow, I didn't get that last time, but now I see how that works. So please just be patient with yourself. I hope you'll be patient with me, but it's really more important you be patient with yourself. And in the end, can I tell you, we're going to win. There is no lose. There is no right. There is no wrong. There is no lose. And somebody with a corrupt mind will go one thought process, one perspective, and somebody with a pure heart will have a totally different perspective. And I hope that you'll choose the latter. So we looked at how to know God. Why is this important? Well, here's my concept. We were told our whole lives out of the book, we were told how to know God. And what I found out, and this is sad, and if you're here and you're a Christian, I'm not being offensive, I've just lived this for long enough, And I do have a right to say what I'm saying because I happen to know what the scriptures say at a pretty deep level. But in all of my 50 plus years of Christianity, what I got to know is El, who was an obscure god in mythology, and I got to find out who Yahweh was, his not very popular warrior son, who was also a god in mythology. If he existed, many believe he was an Anunnaki, which would be akin very much to the fallen angels, the supernatural ones that fly around in spaceships. And of course, now it's coming out that there are a whole lot of corruptions that Christianity did to the Hebrew words, and it may actually be true. I pretty much believe it is, but it may actually be true that all the stuff that we have watched has been an overwritten version, and what they were really saying in the true Hebrew form, when you get out of the people that wrote these books and made them canonized, then you immediately begin to find out that humanity has been interacting with beings from other planets in outer space since the beginning. They're all over the New Testament. That's why I keep trying to show, so you get that concept that Paul was what we are or what we will be. Paul, so many things I used to just roar, I got angry because it's like, how can you people be so stupid to put this guy in here? This guy hates the Torah. He hates, he hates God. And, well, sometimes when Mariana, if my shotgun's working good and she makes me one of them good pies, sometimes you just have to eat it. And I want to be willing to eat it. You know what? How many billions of people still don't know the truth? That's the part that if you're sitting here, then you've probably been drawn here by source. And if nothing else, you should be very thankful for that. How many other people are going to live a life and never know the truth, never know who they are, never know what they could be, never know what they were capable of being, never know the light that they are, never know how much truly Source loves them? Think about that. Because I hope that will help your perception of things, that we're not the lesser. Source tells us in the scriptures that he will make those people who love him and follow him, that he will make them the head and not the tail. He will make them above and never beneath. Friend, if you're here and you're practicing mindfulness and you're practicing meditation and you're practicing contemplation and you are looking inside yourself, at yourself, then my friend, Source is in the process of making you the head of that thing right now. In fact, we probably already are, and we just don't realize at what level that we are. So please understand, this is all part of the journey. When you took away the Christianity and the whole hell thing, and when I found out the true historical understanding that Yeshua wasn't talking anything about dragging people out to the waste dump out there and throwing them when he said they were going to hell, it's like, what? Where's the fiery demons and the devil? And all of a sudden now you don't hear anything about the devil, and you realize that the devil made you do it is an admission by you that your dark self, who you're trying to hide from, is controlling you. You don't want the devil to make you do it. Why don't you take control of the dark that's inside of you? Acknowledge it. Bring it out. Look at it. Expose it. Be honest with yourself. Oh, well, that's in me? You mean I really have the capacity to do that? Come here. I ain't got to hide from you anymore. What an amazing thought it is. Some people have lived their whole lives, man. They went through their whole lives and never found peace with their self. Forget the rest. I mean, and please don't think that I'm diminishing other humans, But if you live your whole life and never find peace with yourself, haven't you kind of wasted your time? I think you do. If you don't think you do, if you think it's good not to have peace with yourself, when Yeshua said the first thing that a man must do is learn to love himself before he can ever learn to love anybody else. Do you know how many people have no love for anybody because they can't stand who they are? And you might be one of those. And if you are, there is hope. You do not have to live that way, but you do have to do some things to change. And if you're willing, then there's huge blessings waiting for you. And he wants us to be blessed above everything. I would above all things that you be blessed and you be prosperous and you live a happy life. And wow, you mean that? You mean I'm not going to hell? You mean if I make one wrong little thing, Yahweh's not going to squash me like a bug? Something that we need to deal with and think about. So, I want to pick up pretty much where we were if you were with me last Saturday. And I realize I'm going to say this again. I'm not backing up, and I refuse to back up. I'm not afraid and ashamed. I'm speaking what source leads me to speak. We're here because I'm here doing what he asked me to do. But I do want to tell you that I realize, so please understand that many of these things, here's the basis, and if you can grab this concept in your mind, then it hopefully will make you understand a little better my burden. We have been so programmed, most of us knew the Christian culture from our whole lives, and we could have been the most evil person in the world. I had some of them in my church. We could have been the most evil person in the world and go to church and function around Christians. It was easy. We knew the buzzwords. I said I hadn't been in church in, I don't know what it was, 20 years, 30 years, something like that. And the Father started calling me out of that and putting me through this beginning of a cycle. My spiritual journey started 25 years before I knew that I was even on a spiritual journey. And when we begin to recognize that maybe we need to be a little bit deeper than just learning the buzzwords, then we begin to take on responsibility. Responsibility that we've delegated to others. You know, one of the things that I see, and I said this early on to you guys, you know, guys, you do understand that getting rid of the rules of the Torah now puts you out there. You either know what to do or you'll suffer the consequences. And while I do believe that is true, and yes, I do believe that there are some New Age people that are playing people. There's some Rod Parsleys and Kenneth Copelands in the spirit world. But on the other side, there's also a lot of really good people that have broken hearts, who are fractured in a million pieces. Used to know a guy, and I called him a kaleidoscope. He was so fractured inside, he literally, you couldn't put him back together if you tried, okay? And that's all fine and well, because now I look and I see that all of us are kaleidoscopes. The difference is there is hope for a kaleidoscope. It may not be possible with you, and it may not be possible with me, but I'll tell you today, friend, with Source, all things are possible. If somebody will come to him, I don't care how messed up you are, I don't care how bad your life has been, I don't care how you're abused, Source has healing for those people that will come to him. And so we could have wasted a lot longer in Christianity only to come to the same truth. But I want to know, many of you that know me know I've said this often, I don't really care what the truth is, I just want to know. You know, I just want to know. What is the truth? What is Source? What is God What does he want from us? What is it that makes it? What is it that makes me pleasing to him? What is it that makes me okay with him? And come to find out, we're okay with him pretty much no matter what we do. We have to pay prices. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's not to say that we're guilt-free, that we're price-free. But on the other side, he loves us and gets us. And then we begin to learn that we have had other lives and we have other things that we didn't finish up that we have to clean up in our life now. We're beginning to be enlightened. That means there's some responsibilities from things that went on. And those things may be mind-boggling for people who believe that it's accorded unto unto every man to live once and then to die, and then the judgment. Can you imagine what that judgment of Christianity would look like? None of us are capable of keeping all the laws, or keeping, really, to a large extent, any of the laws. You understand that that's a curse on all of humanity? Because no matter how hard you try, you'll never be good enough. And they don't mind telling you that. I didn't mind telling people that. Why? Because I had the Bible to stand on. I said it. I'm going to say it again. I'm not ashamed to say it. I am ashamed of many of the things that the Bible says that I believed and taught. But I'm not so ashamed that I'm not willing to change. And when truth comes, friends, sometimes the hardest pill we can take is the one that says, I missed it. So, if you're there and you feel that way, I get it. Let it go. Carl Jung says something that I think all of us could benefit from. This is going to be earth-shattering. I would appreciate it if you would pay attention. This is one of the strongest statements I've ever heard made. For those of you who've been abused, some of you since your earliest childhood, some of you physically, some of you sexually, some of you mentally, some of you societally. Parents are abusing their children by the way they're raising them, a lot more so than you realize. And here's the thing I want to say to you, dear one. It's to you, it's to you, it's to you, it's to you. It's to every one of us. You will never heal. Never. We have only one decision. And that decision is this, dear one. You have to let go of those things. If there is a healing, the healing comes from us recognizing what was done to us. This isn't a time to play games and lie to ourselves. But we have to recognize that what was done to us was not right. I don't condone it. I don't condone the behavior of a lot of parents. I used to make people mad at my church because I would correct them for the way they raised their kids. They're ruining their kids. And then they try to condemn me as being the person who somehow ruined their family. And we can't heal from those things, but what we can do is recognize them, check ourselves and examine them, and the only thing left for us to do is to release them. If we made mistakes, we take responsibility for it. But there's a lot of things that people threw as being my fault that weren't my fault. And those are usually the things where we're done wrong that we have the hardest time holding on to. I can tell you, for those of you that know me, I had thousands of hours of counseling at my church in Austin, Texas. And the one thing that I always knew, if I wanted to find out where someone was at, all I needed to do was throw a few probing questions in there, like, so, well, what does your spouse do that upsets you the most? And you know, it's like going fishing. You don't always catch a bass. Sometimes you catch a perch, but I guarantee you when the bass hits the line, you know it. Okay? The things that are inside of you that hurt you the most want to come out. And so as soon as that door is open, typically with most people, they begin to spill. And they expose all of that pain that's inside of them. And that's wonderful. You need to do that. But you also, after doing that, you need to release it. And you'll be amazed when you'll begin to acknowledge, you know, that person hurt me. But it's all right. It's all right. And let it go. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we couldn't remember anything in our past lives to be angry about? Do you know how many people live their life and never recover from what was done to them in their childhood? How horrible that it's bad enough those people ruined their childhood. Whoever it was, somebody at school, family member, makes no difference how they ruined your childhood. But it's bad enough that your childhood got ruined, so let's just ruin the rest of our life, right? And I know we don't think like that, but that is how we act sometimes. And so we have a freedom to let it go. If you understand, and as we go, you will understand this better. We signed contracts, friend. This life is not at all what you think it is. This isn't the end of anything. This is a temporary little minute stopgap in here that you chose to come to. And for some of you, that may be deeper than you can deal with. But it's still the truth, whether you know it or don't. And so better that we learn that and then learn how to look for what is it that I needed to come here? What is it about me as wonderful light self? What is it that I lack? What is it that I need that I didn't possess? Because the purpose of coming here is to acquire something that we obviously did not have. And sometimes, as I've said in the past, friends, the best way for you to learn anything is to go through pain. You would be amazed when everything is wonderful, you can go through and you don't pay attention to anything but wonderful. You ever been in that situation? You ever been somewhere and somebody says something and you be smiling real big and then all of a sudden they hit you with the bombshell and it just goes by, and then an hour later you look around and you go, wow, what did they really say to me? We were in the high, the euphoria of laughter and joy, and that's wonderful, but that's not where our life is changed the most usually. Our lives get changed that's why we chose to come to this dense planet with low vibrations and low frequencies, because here, through the pain of living a human life, is where you learn how to be the spirit that you really are. What an amazing concept. Yoga and its aim, how to know God. Christianity told me how to know God, and I experience more of His presence now, and many of you told me the same. You experience more of His spiritual presence now than you ever have in your whole life. Isn't that amazing? You didn't need all the condemnation, and you didn't need all the sin, and you didn't need all the pain, and you didn't need all the struggle. I'm seeing people who are doing better now because they want to do better. Wasn't that really supposed to be the whole purpose to begin with? If I only beat you into submission is the only way you'll submit, have I really accomplished anything? Isn't real submission come when we lay down, put our arms down, and we quit fighting? That's what our Father Source wants you to know today. It's time to quit fighting. It's time to acknowledge that you're a broken vehicle. You got a flat tire and you got an exhaust that's about to fall off, but it's okay. Those things are fixable. And so are our lives. In the Hindu scriptures, we often find the phrase, to take refuge in His name. And I love this. I've started here specifically because of this. I love how often you see the teachings that predated Christianity and Christianity tied directly together. Here's Solomon, the wisest man. What do you think made Solomon the wisest man? And now what we know about Yahusha being a Vedic an ascended mystical master shaman. Most people believe he was a shaman, a witch doctor. And here we have Solomon over here controlling all the demonic powers, spirit forces. Can I tell you that's really more appropriate? Spirit forces. And so Solomon has the authority and the power from source to control those. If you could get out, they don't have any real proof that Solomon first off ever lived other than the writings of the Bible. But I will tell you this. Would it surprise you to find out that Solomon's nothing but a metaphor? I'm going to tell you the value of Solomon being a metaphor is 10 times stronger than him being a human person. In the Hindu scriptures, we often find the phrase to take refuge in his name. So that's not new to Christianity, and it's certainly not new to Solomon. Solomon learned that from someone. See also the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 10. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run in. Can I tell you, this is exactly that. The unrighteous will run from this just like the unrighteous run from Christianity. It's no different. There's nothing changed. Those who want the truth, as Source said to me last week, those who are alive, those who want the truth, you can only be alive if you want the truth. Otherwise, you're dead in your sins and trespasses, if you use the Bible's terms. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into, and they are saved. Wow. One doesn't negate the other. It doesn't matter whether it came from ancient Hindu in India, or whether it came from Buddha, or whether it came from Yahusha, or whether it came from Solomon. I would be inclined to believe that if Solomon truly did live, Solomon was just like Yahusha. He was an ascended master. And David brought the greatest minds to teach Solomon. It wasn't something that was given to him supernaturally. Which at first may sound rather too poetical, comes to have a very real and literal significance in our spiritual life. So please hear that. That scripture can literally be applicable to you. When the mind is so violently disturbed by pain or fear or the necessities of some physical emergency that it cannot possibly be used for meditation or even rational thought, there is still one thing that you can always do. You can repeat his name over and over. You can hold fast to that throughout all of your tumult. Once you have really tested and proved the power of the Holy Word, you will rely on it increasingly. Through constant practice, the repetition becomes automatic. It no longer has to be consciously willed. Have scriptures pop into my mind all the time. Poof. That's why I have to tell you, I haven't really even shared this so much with anybody. But I was really scared when we started this journey. I was going to follow the journey because I knew it was where I was supposed to go. But I thought, man, I spent all this time studying the Bible, and now I just have to throw all of that away. And there was a little woman at a Reiki thing down in Wentzville, Missouri, and it was really funny. She spoke a word without knowing it in my life. She looked at me and she said, Source is telling me you don't have to do away with everything that you've known. That's been one of the most prophetic statements that I've ever had made to me by somebody I had never met before. Is it coincidence, or was it a significant event? I'll take it as a significant event. there is still one thing that you can always do. You can repeat his name over and over again. In fact, his word, his name should continually be on our lips. That's also biblical. You can hold fast to that throughout all the tumult. Once you have really tested and proven the power of the Holy Word, you will rely on it increasingly. Through constant practice, the repetition becomes automatic. It no longer has to be consciously willed. It is rather like the thermostat on a water heater or a refrigerator. Whenever the mind reaches an undesirable temperature, you will find that the repetition begins of itself and continues as long as necessary. And I don't know how many of you are walking in this, but my goodness, if you're not, you should. It is absolutely crazy. I can get upset, scared, angry, mad, depressed, discouraged, and my mind doesn't want anything else but him. I have lots of long conversations with him. Mere repetitions of God's name is, of course, insufficient, as Patanjali points out. We must also meditate upon its meaning, and that does mean meditation as far as some form of deep meditation, sitting in a chair, laying down. But there are many ways that we meditate. Sometimes when you're in the worst situation, you need to find the thing that brings you the most joy, and you need to go get lost in it for a couple of hours. You'd be amazed at how strong of meditation that is, because it allows your mind, your chakras to open up, and you can come forth out of your inner spirit to speak. But the one process follows naturally upon the other. If we persevere in our repetition, it will lead us inevitably into meditation. And whether you just call that deep contemplation, for some of you, you've told me that you have problems with meditation. It's okay, it's not the end of the world. I believe if you'll continue on this path, inevitably it will lead you. Gradually, our confused reverie will give way to concentrated thought. We cannot long continue to repeat any word without beginning to think about the reality which it represents. Unless we are far advanced in spiritual practice, this concentration will not be maintained more than a few minutes. So if you've been struggling with you can't do it, or just keep doing it. Little by little, little by little, little by little, little by little, you will grow and increase and have more success and have some spiritual moments, and you'll feel him touch you, and there won't be any question in your mind whatsoever that he touched you. But the mind will slip back into reverie again, but it will be a higher kind of a reverie dominated by sattva rather than by rajas, as tamas, and the name perpetually uttered within it will be like a gentle plucking at our sleeve, demanding and finally recapturing our attention. You just have to keep going. In India, when a disciple comes to his teacher for initiation, he is given what is called a mantram. The mantram consists of one or more holy names which the disciple is to repeat and meditate upon throughout the rest of his life. It is regarded as very private and very sacred. The essence, as it were, of the teacher's instructions to that particular disciple, and the seed within which spiritual wisdom is passed down from one generation to another. You must never tell your mantram to any other human being. The act of repeating it is called yapam. You can make yapam aloud if you were alone, or silently if you're amongst other people. It is convenient to do this with a rosary, thus linking thought with physical action, which is one of the great advantages of all rituals, and providing a small but sufficient outlet for the nervous energy of your body, which might otherwise accumulate and disturb the mind. Most spiritual aspirants resolve to make a certain fixed amount of jampam every day. The rosary serves to measure this, one bead to each repetition of the mantra, so that you are not distracted by having to count. And those of you who may not have ever known, or maybe you did and you didn't see it, maybe you didn't understand what the rosary was about, the Hindu and the Buddhist do the same thing. It's not the rosary, but it is their rosary, but they have string of beads that are 108 beads on a string, and they do that, and they make sure that they get from point A to point B every day. That means, dig this, if you just took that one process, that means 108 times a day they brought to their mind our Father. That in and of itself would be an amazing way to remind yourself not to forget Him. It's hard when you work and you get in the middle of things, you forget. Life goes bad, you forget. You go to eat, you forget. You know, I could just go on in all the bodily functions that we go through, and you forget in every one of those. So it gives us a way to do that. Maybe you would find something different that works for you. Maybe you would find a necklace or something that has beads on it and count those beads one by one every day. Wouldn't matter. It's not about the vehicle. It's about the action. And so I think it's great if you were to choose something like that. But I don't know that it's necessary other than a remindery for you to begin with. I would hope we'll grow to the point that we begin to live lives where every day, all day long, we just naturally, you know, the scriptures tell us, another scripture for you that we don't have to get rid of. Great peace have they whose minds are stayed on Him. Which would be better, to think of His name 108 times or to spend all day long thinking about Him? To invoke Him in your mind while you're working and going, wow, Father, thank you for giving me this job, and thank you for giving me this, and thank you for the place you took me, and thank you for the person you brought into my life. If we spent all day doing that, I guarantee you it would be very difficult for you to have any bad days. Does it change all the things you have to encounter? Not at all. But it changes you. Needless to add, the practice of making jankum is not confined to Hindu religion. The Catholics teach it also. Hail Mary is a mantram. A form of mantram is also recognized by the Greek Orthodox Church. We quote here from a volume containing two remarkable books, The Way of a Pilgrim and The Pilgrim Continues His Way, which record the spiritual pilgrimage of a Russian monk during the middle of the 19th century. The continuous interior prayer of Jesus is a constant, uninterrupted calling upon the divine name of Jesus with the lips, in the spirit, in the heart, while forming a mental picture of His constant presence and imploring His grace. During each occupation, at all times and all places, even during sleep, the appeal is couched in these terms: Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. One who accustoms himself to this appeal experiences as a result so deep a consolation and so great a need to offer the prayer always that he can no longer live without it, which is exactly what I just voiced to you guys. For someone who is steeped in Christianity and may never get out, there's still spiritual light, friend. Are they wasting some time by being in Christianity? At some levels, maybe. On the other levels, if that's what a person has a need for, I don't need Christianity to help me have an interest for Source. I found out all I needed to do was to go to Source. Okay? But if I didn't, I would probably still be in Christianity teaching mysticism until they ran me out. I've been there and done that. Wow. You mean it's more about thinking about him? I say it again. Great peace have they whose minds are stayed. But the Bible tells us on source, not on Yeshua. If that's God to you, I could see why somebody might use that. I don't condemn that, certainly. But it's not factually correct. Do I believe Source knows the thoughts and the intents of our heart? You bet he does. For all the wrong that we've done, and there's been people attack me about all the wrong you did, all the things you said that weren't true, I can't believe it took you that long to learn, and blah, 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 blah. It's all just thoughts, friends. I'm thankful Source loved me and was patient with me and continued and didn't quit. Who wins that? Me. Many so-called enlightened people regard this frequent offering of one or the same prayer as useless and even trifling, calling it mechanical and a thoughtless occupation of simple people. And it may very well be. Okay? It may very well be. What someone who is above you, which really ties for those of you who know one of my first visions that I ever saw. I didn't understand this, and it really didn't make as much sense in Christianity as it even does now. But the first vision I ever saw, we're from Texas, and there were these they have huge limestone slabs in Texas. You can get beautiful limestone, and I grew up, that's what houses, a nice house had limestone on it. And so I saw these huge, according to Texas thought process, these huge steps that were thick, big, massive, heavy, white limestone stairs. And I marveled like a little boy as I was looking up into the heavens, and there were these stairs, and they just went on forever. There was no end to them. And there was somebody standing on every one. And Source said to me, that's how it is. And I've walked past that and condemned so many people because they were on a rung lower than I was. You see those things? You know what, friends? If somebody needs a picture of Jesus in their mind to access the Father, give them a picture of Jesus. You say, well, that ain't right. By whose standard? Yours or Source's? If Source knows the thoughts and the intents of our heart, friends, if we have a false belief system, he still knows whether it's him we're looking for. Now, if Source is not big enough to bring a Christian out of Christianity, not because of the good, the problem isn't the good. It's because of the false. And if Source isn't big enough to do that, do you really think there's anything that you're going to do to change them? I mean, do we really limit Source a lot more than we recognize? I hear these words like there's no judgment, and I have to tell you that's a little bit difficult for me. But I'm starting to recognize that as we begin to grow and understand that this isn't our life and we're going to live here forever and this is all there is. This isn't that, friend. And wherever you're at and all of your stupid that you've done and all of the wrong things that you've done and all of the horrible things that you've done, if Source can look at you and still love you, then it shouldn't be difficult for you to understand. He does the same for everyone else. I do believe there's a line and a place for those people who, Hitler might not be sitting on the right hand of God. I can't tell you where he is, and I can't tell you what will happen to him. And can I be real honest with you? I don't want to know. I could care less. I got my hands full with walking and learning how to walk in peace when I was taught my whole life how to walk in turmoil and drama. I was taught that by my family members, every single one of them. I was taught that by my Christian church. I was taught that by my public school. I was taught that by the NBC News. I got my hands full just trying to keep my head focused on what's right and what he wants from me. And it's been quite amazing in just a few months how quickly a lot of those things just fall away as meaning nothing. Here's a statement that we need to get a hold of. I hear it and I read it a lot. It took us a long time to get here. If my spiritual journey started 30 years ago in Austin, Texas, when I became a pastor of a Christian church, and it took him 30 years to get me here, why would you then impose some kind of judgment on somebody else that they're not moving fast enough? Maybe it takes that person 30 years to come out of the belief systems they have. Does that mean Source doesn't love them? And you can't learn the truth and then not know the truth. Because I'm going to tell you right now, wherever every human being on this earth is at, Source loves them. And those great stairs have 10 times more significance now. What we ought to be doing, instead of doing what we were taught to do by society and our family and our religion, what we ought to be doing is loving people no matter where they're at. That's what unconditional love means. Loving people for who they are. Every one of you that hear my voice and everyone sitting in this room, every one of us signed a contract. To come here. So it obviously means that every one of us are here because we have a need. And who am I to know what your need is? You ever heard the thought system that, walk a mile in another man's shoes? That's a statement of non-judgmental. Until you know what he's going through, you don't know what he's going through. How many of you have been abused? Until somebody's been abused, I'm sorrowful. I have much empathy. I'm very empathetic. But I have to tell you, in all honesty, I can't know what a girl who was abused by somebody that she loved, how bad that hurt inside of her is. I can't know that, no matter how bad I want to. We really don't love each other in the way that we should. What if we really begin to just care about each other instead of criticize each other? I hear that and I hear people all the time say words like, oh, well, we love bannering with each other, and it's like, I abhor that crap so bad. Please take your banner and go somewhere else. I don't want to hear it. It's a residual of a past timeline that is not beneficial to me. It's not fun and good for anybody except whoever it is that's bannering and winning the banter over the other person. There's nothing spirit or soul building in that. Anywhere. And if you'll be honest and cut to the chase, really what you're doing is a controlled form of belittlement. I don't want that. I don't need that in my life. That timeline is come and gone, friends. Am I saying that we shouldn't play and joke with each other? No, we should. But we also need to be mindful that these are other humans, and all of these humans have things going on in their mind. They have fears. Every one of us sitting here today have fears inside of us. Every one of us. You never know what a statement might devastate. You know, for those of you, one of the things in the Akashic record that keeps popping up is that whether you have a near-death experience or whether you die, when you are taken to the Akashic record, which is the judgment that the Bible talks about. And it was so profound the first time I heard about the Akashic record, because it actually has been found by the quantum computer. That's where they get the answers that are coming back to the quantum computer. They're reaching into a spirit field. And everyone who goes to the Akashic record on death views everything they ever did. But here's something that keeps shocking me, and I've heard hundreds of people say the same exact word. So I know that it's not just something that they're playing. But every one of those people had to look at the things that they did and how that affected other people. Guess what isn't as important in your Akashic record? Has nothing to do with what those people did to you. It has to do with what you did to them. Friend, if we're going to judge, be judged, and we're going to have to weep and go through weeks in the Akashic record of crying over the way we hurt people with stupid words, don't you think the simplest way would be learn how to do that not as little as possible? Is it inevitable that the most perfect person isn't going to... I'm sure that the greatest yogi that ever lived, I'm sure somewhere he offended someone. But we can mindfully begin to start thinking about, not about, well, I wanted to say that, and I've been that, so please, I'm talking to me. But what about if we stopped and hesitated in our actions and our behaviors and our words? And what if we ask, how is this going to affect this person that's in this room with me? Can I tell you? It will be those kind of things that it's going to change this earth. Only people with elevated frequencies will do that. Base people do whatever they can do to destroy whoever they can destroy. Of course, I wish I'd have known this 60 years ago, because I guarantee you everything in my life would be different. Everything. There's a lot of things I would not have put up with. I would have been gone. I don't know about you, but I don't like being around that stuff anymore. It's not part of my timeline. That's a different life, and those things no longer serve me. What serves me now is peace inside. What serves me now is knowing where I'm at in my relationship with Source. And so it's something that we need to think about. It will affect your life more, probably as much as anything is changing your thought. I was somewhere. Many so-called enlightened people regard this frequent offering of one and the same prayer as useless and even trifling. And it is, but I would like for those of you who are useless and trifling, such as myself, I would like to encourage you, do it anyways. If that's what it takes for you to get a paradigm shift, which is a change in direction, if that's what it takes for you to get a change in direction and it leads you towards focusing on Father, get whatever you need to get. Whatever works to get you there. In the end, that's all that's going to matter. As you learn, and I'm finding this out in the spirit realm, man, meditating isn't near as hard now. I mean, it's like that stuff comes a lot easier than what it used to. And as we grow and learn and practice these things, they just get easier. And then it's like, that ain't nothing. I said his name 125 times today. I didn't need no beads. But that may not be everybody's situation. And so, unfortunately, they do not know the secret which is revealed as a result of this mechanical exercise. They do not know. Understand, he just talked about enlightened people are the ones that don't know. There's really a bigger picture in that little part of a paragraph right there, friend, for each and every one of us. They don't know how this frequent service of the lips imperceptibly becomes a genuine appeal of the heart. Dr. Bruce Lipton says the same thing. If you've gone and watched any of his amazing videos about the human mind, he says, even if you don't believe it, keep saying the affirmation, because eventually you will. And that's exactly what they're trying to tell you here. They do not know how this frequent service of the lips imperceptibly becomes a genuine appeal of the heart, sinks down into your inward life, and then becomes a delight. Becomes, as it were, natural to the soul. I just naturally think about Father. Bringing it light and nourishment and leading it on to the union with God. Folks, that's what this is all about. As we begin to release ourselves in the light that we are inside, and as we begin to obey, the most important commandment of Yeshua is to not put our light under a basket. And all of us live in baskets. They're called human bodies. And your light is in a basket. You have to learn how to expose your light to the world again. If you knew metaphorically what Yeshua was talking about, it's a totally different picture. St. John Chrysostom, in his teaching about prayer, speaks as follows: no one should give the answer that it is impossible for a man occupied with worldly cares and who is unable to go to church to pray always. Speaking of the statement that in praying always, Paul says that. Everywhere, wherever you may find yourself, you can set up an altar to God in your mind by means of prayer. And you can talk with him and walk with him all day long. I love that old song, that line, if nothing else. And he walks with me and he talks with me and he tells me I am his own. Oh, the joy that fills. You might have heard the song, amazing. That should be what our everyday life is. That should be a picture of our life. And it is so fitting to pray at your trade, on a journey, standing at the counter, sitting at your handicraft. In such an order of life, all of his actions, by the power in the invocation of the name of God, would be signalized by success, and finally he would train himself to uninterruptedly, prayerfully vocation on the name of Jesus. Mine would be Source or Father, God. All of those work really good. I can also tell you what it wouldn't be. El and Yahweh and Yahuwah and Yehiho and Yahoho and Ha-Ha and Ha-Ha. It wouldn't be any of those things. Simply suffice to say, Father, I love you. Thank you for loving me. Wow. That's so powerful, but so simple. And so it is fitting to pray at your trade, on a journey, standing at the counter, sitting at your handicraft, in such an order in life, all of his actions, by the power of the invocation of the name of Source, would be signalized by success, and finally, he would train himself to do that constantly. What an amazing message. We had to go get a Hindu to be taught that. Why isn't Christianity teaching that? He would come to know from experience the frequency of prayer, that sole means of salvation, is a possibility for the will of man, that it is possible to pray at all times, in all circumstances, in every place, and easily rise from frequency vocal prayer to the prayer of the mind, and from that to the prayer of the heart, which opens up the kingdom of source inside of us. Wow. Is that not beautiful? Do you see the alternatives? Can I tell you? Christianity is based off of fear. Do you see any fear in any of this? In fact, what Source really wants for us is that we experience no fear. I was driving the other day. It's a synchronicity for me. You can't know that unless you're me. Well, some people who know me might have seen it as the same, but I was driving and I was in the middle of thought, and I pulled out up to a road, and across the road was a street. Was a church across the street, and there was this huge sign that was scrolling words by. And just as I pulled up there and stopped and looked over and recognized the sign was there, here scrolls in about letters about that big, digital letters about that big, and it scrolls across this whole screen that's about 5 foot long, and it said, courageous. And for those of you who've been with me, you know that that message keeps recurring. I've received that from 3 or 4 different spirit forces telling me to be courageous. Why? Because sitting here today speaking to people what I'm speaking takes courage. It's not easy. It would be much easier for me to shut my mouth and go get a job in a Christian church than it would be. I know that doctrine. I could play that game, smoke a joint on one side and rub my rosaries on the other. That's not hard. That's easy. What's hard is telling people the truth they don't want to hear. And hopefully they do, because that's where the victory is. So for all of you who've told me you're experiencing peace and that there are changes going on in your life, man, just let it happen. Let it happen. He loves you. He loves you. He loves you. He loves you. So I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful week. Hope you feel his presence. For any of you who have an interest in finding out about this crystal jewelry and stuff, by all means write us on my email on ahopmo. There is much healing and much blessing in it. I personally believe that we should take advantage of all of the gifts that have been given to us from Mother Earth and from our source, our Father. And so if you would like to find out about what I'm doing, because it's not just trying to hawk jewelry. I'm more interested in the healing force than I am anything. And so for those that have already are wearing them, the power of that prayer is huge. So peace to each and every one of you. I hope you have an amazing week. I hope you have things that you don't even understand that you've heard today that pop into your life. Don't disregard it. That is the spirit realm speaking to you, dear one. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, and that's the extent of human that we are. Namaste.